Friends, hello everyone. This is News Vector. Short, clear, and straight to the point about what the world is discussing today. Support the episode with a like, a comment, and a subscription to the channel. Let's begin. The global situation is rapidly reaching a new level of tension. Several directions at once, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and the internal situation within EU countries are showing signs of systemic escalation. The main statement of the day came from Kyiv. Volodymyr Zelensky delivered a sharp address in which he effectively confirmed the launch of a new phase of military operations. This involves coordinated actions by the armed forces of Ukraine, the Security Service of Ukraine, and other security agencies, including strikes on targets inside Russian territory. In Kyiv, this is described as a forced measure and an element of pressure. Almost immediately afterward, the Russian side placed its aviation on heightened combat readiness. During the night and into the morning, one of Russia's regions was subjected to the largest drone attack since the beginning of the conflict. Drones arrived in waves and the raid lasted several hours. Air defense systems, electronic warfare assets, and aviation were involved in repelling the attack. Regional authorities confirmed damage to residential buildings with civilians reported injured. According to official statements, some drones were shot down or diverted from their course. However, debris fell into urban areas. Local authorities urged residents not to publish footage of the aftermath. Moscow views what happened as a new level of escalation. In response, expert circles are actively discussing the recent use of a new Russian weapon system, the Oreshnik complex. Western media describe this strike as demonstrative and politically symbolic. According to analysts, Oreshnik in this context is not only a military instrument but also a signal to the West. Its use is linked to statements by European leaders about the possible deployment of foreign troops on Ukrainian territory after the signing of a peace agreement. A particularly firm stance was voiced by Dmitry Medvedev. In his public address, he emphasized that Russia will not accept the presence of European or NATO troops in Ukraine in any form. The statement was accompanied by footage of the strike and harsh rhetoric directed at Paris and London. Meanwhile, NATO is increasing pressure on its eastern flank. In Lithuania, a new military training ground is being rapidly constructed near the Suwalki corridor, a strategically important area that military experts describe as a potential point of direct confrontation between Russia and the alliance. To facilitate construction, a decision has already been made to relocate local residents. Several families will leave their homes while dozens of people will remain in a zone of regular military exercises. Authorities explain that this measure is necessary due to the sharp increase in NATO troop numbers and equipment in the region. The project is expected to cost around 100 million euros. Finland is going even further. The country has officially withdrawn from the convention banning anti-personnel landmines. Helsinki states that the changed security environment requires a reassessment of previous commitments. Finland can now once again use such mines to protect its border, the longest land border between NATO and Russia. France continues to discuss the deployment of its troops to Ukraine. Closed consultations involving senior military and political leadership have taken place at the Élysée Palace. The discussions concern the possible deployment of up to 6,000 French soldiers after the active phase of hostilities ends. Emmanuel Macron insists these will not be frontline forces but support units. However, in Moscow, such statements are perceived as a direct threat and an attempt to legitimize NATO's presence in the conflict zone. Against the backdrop of European tension, the situation in the Middle East is sharply deteriorating. For the second week in a row, mass anti-government protests have been ongoing in Iran. Internet and mobile communications are effectively shut down across the country. Security forces warn that any refusal to follow orders will be treated as treason. According to various reports, the number of fatalities is in the dozens, with thousands detained. Iranian state media accuse the United States and Israel of interference and attempts to destabilize the country. Donald Trump published a short but high-profile statement saying that the United States is ready to help the Iranian people. Analysts interpret this as a possible signal of a force-based scenario. Soon afterward, reports emerged about preparations for a large-scale U.S. operation against Iranian military targets. At the same time, U.S. aviation carried out strikes against ISIS positions in Syria in response to the deaths of American citizens. Washington emphasizes that this was an act of retaliation. Returning to Ukraine, another conflict is unfolding inside the country. The Security Service of Ukraine reports a series of corruption exposures within military enlistment offices. Officials were allegedly selling exemptions from mobilization, transfers to rear units, and illegal exits abroad. The sums involved reach tens of thousands of dollars. Kyiv officially acknowledges that corruption and unauthorized desertion directly undermine the country's defense capability. The new leadership of the presidential office has announced the start of a large-scale crackdown on such schemes. Another alarming trend is emerging in Europe. According to sociologists, every fifth resident of Germany is seriously considering emigration. The main reasons cited are economic instability, rising tensions, and a sense of a lost future. Dissatisfaction is particularly high among people with a migrant background. And finally, a social aspect. Psychologists identify three main male fears in relationships: insecurity about one's own value, fear of asking for help, and fear of showing emotions. Experts believe that suppressing these feelings leads to internal conflicts and the breakdown of families. Friends, thank you for being with us. If you found the material useful, support the episode with a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the News Vector channel. See you in the next episode.